2 hours later, Karen sat in the back of Officer Martinez's patrol car, her hands finally steady for the first time in weeks. Through the window, she watched the chaos she'd unleashed. News vans lined Maple Street, residents clustered in animated groups, and the pool, her masterpiece of destruction, sat half-drained with chunks of concrete scattered like confetti. "Mrs. Weatherby," Officer Martinez said, sliding into the driver's seat, "help me understand what happened here." Karen straightened her blazer, muscle memory kicking in from countless HOA meetings. "I enforced community standards, officer, something the board seemed incapable of doing fairly. By destroying a swimming pool with a dump truck. By removing a water feature that violated our own guidelines." She pulled out her phone, scrolling to her meticulously documented evidence. Pool height, 4 feet 6 inches above ground level. Community standard maximum, 4 feet even. Filtration system noise level, 47 decibels at property line. Maximum allowable, 45 decibels. Officer Martinez rubbed his temples. "Ma'am, there's a difference between filing a complaint and..." "Filing complaints got me nowhere," Karen interrupted, her voice cracking slightly. 14 violations against my fountain in 2 months, while actual safety hazards like the Johnson's cracked sidewalk go in mode for years. Their pool's been out of compliance since 2019, but somehow that's not a priority." She gestured toward Bill Henderson, who was gesticulating wildly at a news reporter. 3 years I've served on that board. 3 years of Karen, you're being too rigid, and Karen, maybe we should let this one slide. But the moment I install something beautiful, something that makes me happy in my own yard, suddenly the rules matter again." Her phone buzzed constantly now, interview requests, support messages, and surprisingly, legal offers from attorneys specializing in HOA disputes. Karen scrolled through them, feeling something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. "Mrs. Weatherby, I have to ask, do you regret this?" Karen looked at the pool, then at Bill Henderson's red face as he tried to explain to reporters why the HOA pool violated the same standards they'd used to fine her. A slow smile spread across her face. "Officer, for the first time in months, I feel like myself again." Her phone rang, Sarah calling for the 5th time. Karen finally answered. "Mom, are you okay?" "The video is everywhere. #pool Karen is trending, but in a good way. People are calling you a hero." Karen laughed, a sound that surprised her with its lightness. "Hero might be strong, sweetheart. There's a reporter here asking about your fountain." "Mom, it's gorgeous. I never understood why you were so upset about removing it." Through the patrol car window, Karen watched her neighbors looking at her with a mixture of fear and fascination. Tomorrow, there would be consequences, lawsuits, insurance claims, possibly criminal charges. But tonight, everyone in Willowbrook Estates would go to sleep knowing that Karen Weatherby wasn't someone to be dismissed. 3 weeks later, Karen sat in the packed community center, the emergency HOA meeting buzzing with an energy she'd never seen before. Half the residents wore homemade shirts reading, "Fair enforcement for all," while the other half clustered protectively around the remaining board members. "The insurance company has assessed the pool damage at $47,000, Bill Henderson announced, his voice strained. "Mrs. Weatherby's actions have created a financial crisis for our community." "A crisis you created," called out Janet Morrison, a usually quiet resident from Elm Street. "My fence has been 6 inches too high for 4 years, but you never measured it until Karen started asking questions." Karen watched the room divide, fascination overriding her anxiety. The video of her pool destruction had gone viral, but more importantly, it had sparked something unexpected: accountability. Residents were demanding explanations for years of selective enforcement, and the board was scrambling. Furthermore, Bill continued, shooting daggers at Karen. "We're implementing new security measures to prevent future incidents of domestic terrorism." Domestic terrorism? Karen stood, her voice cutting through the murmur. "Is that what we're calling property owners demanding equal treatment now?" The room erupted. Supporters applauded while detractors shouted over each other. Karen felt the familiar rush of controlling a meeting, But this time, she wasn't trying to restore order. She was the beautiful chaos at the center of it all. Her lawyer, David Chen, leaned over. The district attorney is willing to discuss a plea deal. Community service, restitution, no jail time. Karen nodded, but her attention was on Mrs. Patterson from Oak Lane, an elderly woman who rarely spoke at meetings. She was approaching the microphone with determined steps. "I've lived here 32 years," Mrs. Patterson began, her voice shaky but clear. "I've watched this board pick favorites and punish anyone who asks questions." Karen did something crazy, yes, but crazy was the only thing that worked. The applause was thunderous. Karen felt tears prick her eyes, not from guilt or regret, but from recognition. She'd spent 3 years trying to be the perfect board member, following every rule, crossing every T, but perfection had made her invisible. As the meeting devolved into smaller arguments, Karen slipped out the back door. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of her neighbor's jasmine, a plant that was probably 3 inches over the height limit. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Pool construction company called. They want to sponsor your fountain rebuild. Apparently, you're good for business." Karen laughed, looking up at the stars barely visible above the community's perfectly uniform streetlights. Tomorrow, she'd start dealing with the consequences. The lawsuits, the restitution, the awkward grocery store encounters. But tonight, she felt something she'd almost forgotten: the power of being genuinely, unapologetically herself. Behind her, the community center doors burst open as residents spilled onto the sidewalk, their voices animated with the kind of passion usually reserved for championship games. Change was coming to Willowbrook Estates, whether the old guard wanted it or not. Karen smiled, fishing her keys from her purse. She had a fountain to rebuild, bigger this time, and definitely within code. Well, mostly within code. A woman had to keep some mystery alive. The sound of screeching metal against concrete shattered the peaceful Tuesday morning at Willowbrook Estates. Karen Weatherby sat behind the wheel of a rented dump truck, its massive blade scraping along the edge of the community pool deck as she attempted what could only be described as suburban warfare. "Ma'am, ma'am," shouted Jim Rodriguez, the pool maintenance worker, as he scrambled away from the chlorine chemical station. "You can't do this." Karen's knuckles were white against the steering wheel, her perfectly styled blonde bob now disheveled from the morning's exertion. "Watch me," she muttered through gritted teeth, reversing the truck for another approach. The HOA violation notice crumpled in her cup holder told the whole story: 14 citations in 2 months, culminating in a $5,000 fine for her unauthorized water feature installation. The fountain, her beautiful 3-tiered Italian marble fountain that she'd saved 2 years to afford. The fountain that the HOA board had deemed ostentatious and inconsistent with community standards. The fountain they'd ordered her to remove by today or face legal action. Well, if they wanted to play hardball about water features, Karen would show them what a real water feature problem looked like. Karen, for the love of. Bill Henderson, the HOA president, came running across the manicured lawn in his bathrobe and slippers, coffee mug still in hand. "What are you doing?" She rolled down the window, her voice surprisingly calm. "Solving the community's water feature problem permanently." The truck lurched forward again, its blade catching the pool's filtration system with a satisfying crunch. "This is insane. You're destroying community property. Community property that's in violation of the very standards you people love to enforce." Karen shot back, eyes blazing. "Did you know this pool exceeds the maximum allowable water feature height by 6 inches? Section 4.23 of the community guidelines." Bill's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Karen had done her homework. The sound of sirens grew louder as neighbors emerged from their houses, phones already recording. Karen felt a strange sense of liberation as she watched their shocked faces. For months, she'd been the perfect HOA board member, meticulous, rule-following, respected. But respect, she'd learned, was a one-way street in Willowbrook Estates. Her phone buzzed with texts from her daughter Sarah. "Mom, you're trending on TikTok. What did you do?" Karen smiled grimly. Sometimes going viral was the only way to get heard.